back to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin and Sambois.
So, today, we have an interesting topic to talk about. I think it kind of came about at a family function. I won't say who or what, just for privacy purposes. But it was a really interesting conversation one of my siblings was having. And then the conversation kind of spilled into our family vacation about a poverty mindset. And at first I was like, what are you talking about? And it was just, basically just thinking about like how as new age parenthood, just how many things are so different from, how we were raised or how our parents were raised. And essentially, whether you have children or not, it's just kind of like thinking about some of those experiences and how they've impacted our mindset. And so it got me to start thinking about like, how do we move from a poverty mindset to an abundance mindset? And for how many years that I didn't even realize I had some of those poverty mindset traits until, there were certain things that I did, like I started to question why I was so like my kids would not finish their food, for example. And I would just be like, well, you can't get up until you eat this. And then I remember probably my middle child, I think I had this situation a few years, like this was some years ago. It wasn't like recent. But she had like gotten all this food and then was like, oh, I'm full. Like, I don't want any more. And I was like, but you took all this food. Like, you have to eat it. And she's like, but I don't want it. And I'm full. And I don't know why I couldn't let it go. And I started to think back like, okay, when you were a kid, like there was no way I was going to leave any food on the table because my mom would have just like flipped out.
She would have hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flipped out. Flipped out is like,
yeah.
What? Hurt you.
Yeah. And I didn't understand it then, but it was just, my mom's thing was always because, we were so, money was so tight and, there were periods of time where we didn't have, excess food. And so in her mind, it's like, no, you can't possibly waste food. Like you have to eat this. And so it really kind of, I kind of forgot about all that until my sister brought it up recently. And it got me to thinking about like, man, how many of us are still kind of in this place of a poverty mindset? And it's not to be judgy or to feel like you should be ashamed, or it's more of just like really thinking through like, why do I do some of the things that I do? And is it coming from this poverty mindset? And how do I start to shift that to more of an abundance mindset?
Yeah, it's being aware because you just do things on autopilot. So you didn't even know that was in you, right? Because we always say, I'm never going to be like my parents. And then you grow up and you're just like your parents because that's what was, imprinted in you.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my dad a couple of days ago and I was, when the mega million was like billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, Dad, I'm making plans. I already wrote it down. I'm going to do with the billions. And literally in 5 minutes, he gave me like 20 reasons why it's not good to have money. And I was like, okay, well, whoa. He was like, no, because, I have enough and money brings problems. And I just want God to give me what I can handle. And I say, I can handle a lot. I want God to give me all the billions. And I realized that growing up, that was the set. You looked at rich people or those that had money as they were evil and they were greedy and mean, and they didn't care about poor people. They didn't care about us because we were the poor people. And they didn't like to share. So you grew up with that mindset. And even though you say you want money, like your subconscious does not want it because it's afraid, right? It's a shameful thing. At church, things are changing now where people used to be like, the money is evil. It is not evil. The people that have money are evil. And then what they do with that is evil. It's not that the money itself is evil. Money is just a thing that we assign value to. But money is important.
Yeah, it's a tool.
Yes, and you can do so much good with it. So I had to really restarted like rewiring my brain years ago about why money was important.
Yeah.
And then even though I don't have all that I want, I have, enough and I want more. And that's okay. So telling my dad that was a really fun conversation because he he wasn't getting it. And I said, I understand how you feel, Dad. That's how you grew up. But that is not the way we're going to go forward.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be afraid of having money, which explains why he doesn't have money, right? Because my dad is so smart. He's, he owns companies and he could have been a billionaire.
Yeah.
But that mindset of money being evil is why he doesn't have what he deserves or he has worked so hard to have.
Yeah, that scarcity mindset. And if you're listening and you're like, okay, I'm not following, what is a poverty mindset? According to a definition that I found, a poverty mentality is one that influences behaviors consistent with beliefs that money shouldn't be spent, that opportunities are limited, and any risk at all is dangerous. Any success is temporary and non-replicable, and generally remaining in the back of the pack is the safest. So if you think back of just, kind of what we've shared thus far about just our childhood experiences, because I think it really does come to a place of, do we find that even opportunities that we limit ourselves and we're like, oh, this is not for me, or only certain people get to experience? Because honestly, like when I was little, we only ever like family vacations and stuff. Like we went to New York because that's where my grandparents were. Both my parents had parents in Brooklyn. And so like that was probably like a 3 to 4 times a year, and we wasn't getting on no plane. Let's be clear. We was packing up in Papi's red station wagon, or even the blue. We had a blue, I think Lumina. I don't remember, but they weren't no spacious 3-row SUVs. It was literally like we would pack up, and drive straight there, go visit, the people we needed to visit, and then we would pack back up in the car. We would go get pizza, maybe Chinese food. We wasn't going to Times Central Square. We weren't going, like, it was literally, we go to see the family, came right back. Kings Island, probably when I started to hit maybe about 7, 8, that became like I wouldn't say annual thing, but I do remember visiting Kings Island. And the park, that was like that was it. There was no, and thinking back, it was just always like, oh, like we didn't, vacations, like that
was a vacation.
Yeah. But that wasn't, these kids today though, that's not the, like if I honestly like,
oh my God,
it's just such a difference now. But I think it took me, I didn't get on my first airplane until I was 21. That was the first time I ever boarded. I went with some colleagues, or they were coworkers then, and they were all going to DC for some event that one of their family members was throwing or something. And they were like, you should come. And I was like, I don't even know how to fly. Like I never flew before. I didn't even know what you needed to fly. And my coworker was like, all you just got to do is go online, get the ticket. And here I am, I'm a millennial. And it's crazy because my mindset was it's not that I didn't understand technology, but I didn't understand opportunity as it related to travel. I just never thought about traveling, never really wanted to travel because it wasn't something that I was ever exposed to. And so when I got on that first flight and we flew out there, and I was just amazed. I really was amazed by like the flight process and getting to the airport and going to this hotel. I've stayed at hotels before, but it was just the whole experience. And I just was like, that was my first actual like trip that I flew, and I was already in my 20s.
Yeah, and since then you've done so many.
Yeah,
once she was exposed, guys, it was over.
Oh yeah, after I got on that flight, and I was like, wow, like this is what it's like to travel. And it was that mindset shift of like, well, why can't I travel? And it was just because and I don't blame my family. I think it was just more of like, they had never really experienced certain things like that. So they didn't know how to share or inspire us to want those things. But I really think it was more of this, we just don't do that, or we don't have money for that.
Right. They couldn't afford it. Yeah. It wasn't that they didn't want to. Right. They couldn't afford it. And it wasn't shown to them, right? So, like, I got on my first plane when I was 12 because I was coming to this country. And I was, like, always just envision what it would be like to be in a plane. And literally probably few nights before I dreamed the experience. And when I was in it, it was like having deja vu. I was like, no, I want it to be brand new. Like I'd done this, but it was still amazing. And I love traveling. I think once I did that time, it took years to get on a plane again, but I really, really loved it. And I knew from the first time I flew a plane, like I love being in the air. Like I love it. So I think exposure is important. And, our children or your children have a different life, right? They know the word vacation. We didn't know the word vacation. Mm-hmm. So like I feel like we knew trips and family trips were family vacations. Like that was it. So if you went to see the family, that was a trip. Mm-hmm. If you went to the river, right, or the beach, that was a trip. I don't think the word vacation, I never learned it until I came to America. Like that was not a word that we used. Mm-hmm. It was not in our vocabulary growing up. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean that it's bad. So for people that are thinking, do I have this type of mindset? You probably do. And if you don't, it's okay. And if you do, it's okay. So you had a limited, right, exposure, but you had a good exposure. Because when you compare your life, you're always going to find people that have never left the city of Columbus. They have never left whatever Johnstown. Like I have met people that have never gone to another city in Ohio, right? Like you never been to Cleveland, really? Mm-hmm. And they never have left the state. They never have left the country. And then you have people that live on a plane, they travel all the time. So we're kind of like, I feel like we're in the middle, right? Because we haven't done all of these things, but we also now at the other spectrum. Yeah. So wherever you are in the beginning of the spectrum or the end of the spectrum, it's okay. Yeah. All we're doing is kind of bringing awareness to something you probably didn't even know was imprinted in you now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was reading more up on this whole poverty mentality, like just reading through the signs. So the signs of a poverty mentality. And when I was reading this, there was some ones that really stuck out to me. And so I think it's like, we're always learning and growing. And I think it's important to make people understand that it's not about perfection. It's about progress. And I think that a lot of sometimes the situations or how we feel or outcomes of situations really do play a part in just our mindset of it all. And so when I was reading the signs of poverty mentality, this is basically what non about. And it says that a belief that you are a victim of others' decisions and choices, fear of spending money as non-essentials, constant search for cheapest alternative, even if discomfort. I know somebody like that.
I would like to add that. Okay, I know because I know like that trip, Bryce. I knew the trip we took and that hotel was awful. You were gonna come up with that in the middle of our podcast.
No. I wasn't judging. Well, I think you took personal connection to that one because I never said it.
But anybody. I feel like if discomfort is the part when we pushing it. But I feel like finding deals, everybody Tuesday, Wednesday nights for flights.
It doesn't say deals. It's just the cheapest alternative.
Okay, well, I call that deals. It's also being frugal. So that could go both ways. I would like to.
Did you see the next bullet point? It says obsession with getting deals.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna say,
You just used the word deals, and then the very next bullet point says obsession with getting deals.
The not fun word there is obsession.
And free entry. I won't say who also really loves free things, but that's also a poverty mindset. And then it says belief that you're lucky when you succeeded, incompetent when you fail, denying yourself as an ongoing way of life, feelings of guilt when you have more than someone else, fear of being seen as boasting when you are describing a simple accomplishment, never picking up a check someone else may pick up, never feeling you have enough reserves or resources, and then a belief you can lose it all despite everything you do. So that was just some of which, and like I said, when I was reading this, I was like, some did kind of stick out to me. Some stood out to me because I know people like this, but it was just kind of like, wow, like these are things that in my mind, I was raised to like my mom, I love her to death, but my mom, she would be like, well, why did you buy it there? You should have went here. It was cheaper. And I'm like, yeah, but by the time you calculate gas, time, especially now, I need, going to 3 and 4 stores to save 25 cents. Although I'm not saying savings is not important, but in my mind, just in the bigger scheme of things, I think that was something that was impressioned upon me, that I needed to go out and I needed to do all these things. And it's like, but if this works, and I can make it happen, why do I stress myself into feeling like I needed to do it this way?
It's the same thing with entrepreneurs, right? Like I think that poverty mindset is there, which also prevents a lot of entrepreneurs from growing up, right? Or growing their business because, and right, like in the beginning, we did everything. I don't know how. I think that was definitely obsession because now we look at our team and we're like, oh my God, like we have all these people doing what we were trying to do to people. And it's still hard, right?
Yeah.
And you tell a new entrepreneur, you have to figure out what you can delegate and pay someone. And they're like, no, it's impossible. I can't. And I'm like, you have to, or you're never going to grow.
Yeah.
And that is the poverty mindset. You feel like if you share some of the money that you're making, then you're going to have less. And you're not thinking that if I invest, because it's not really wasting, it's an investment, then you can have more leverage to grow, right? And your team could have better quality. So you can apply a lot of this to your own life when it comes to like food, and how you handle your money and your life, but also how you handle your business.
Yeah.
Because if you're having a poverty mindset in your business is not going to flow because the vibration on it already is poverty mindset.
Yeah.
And vibration is the energy, right? Whatever energy you kind of like going off of is going to rub off on everything that you do. So when you talk about how you change this, right? Because we talked about all the things already. Like, yes, so this is poverty mindset. This is, you already kind of know a couple of the examples.
Before we move on to the abundance, did any of these stick out to you that you felt like you wanted to kind of, because the
list?
Yeah, because for me, the two that really stood out to me was for the feeling of guilt when you have more than someone else, and then the fear of being seen as boasting when you are describing a simple accomplishment. Those two, in addition to a few others, like those two stood out to me a lot because like my mom is always, when I call her and I'm like, Mommy, I feel bad. She's like, you can't feel bad, mija. Like she's like, and because it does feel as, sometimes I'm like, I hate to see people, because we've all struggled. Like, you have your seasons where you're in between. But understanding that it's not a bad thing if you are prospering. It's not a bad thing if you are kind of in your zone and you're in your lane. And I think because I was hanging around at one period of my life with so many people that, like me, was kind of stuck in some of this poverty mindset, they would take me succeeding, in business and life as like, oh, well, she thinks she's better than somebody else, or like, oh, she's switched up or she's different. And I used to take offense to that. I took offense to it. I used to feel like, all right, I'm not telling nobody like what's going on. Like even now, like I got new stuff. Like I got a new whip and nobody knows because I didn't want anybody to know.
You got a new whip?
A car. Oh, it's called a whip, aka car.
Guys,
means
I
whip.
only learned like English, right? Like I wanted you to know like some slang. I'm still figuring it out because I had to pick between like English and other things.
Yeah, so because it's like some people get stuff and they're like, oh, put it on social media, and I'm like,
yeah, nobody knows that you got a new car.
Somebody saw me and they're like, when did you get a new car? I was like, I've had this car for like 2 years now, at least. Yes. But it was just for me, like I was so grateful for it, and it was just a great thing. But to me, I was like, I'm not about to post.
But even
this.
then, you were almost forced to get it because you had this, right? So let's be real here, right?
Right, because I didn't want to spend the money, and what's so weird is because my husband and I are so opposite. Like now, it's weird. So years back, I was like, let's just buy it. And he would be like, no, we can't afford it. Because he, like me, definitely had a lot of these traits. And he would be like, we can't afford it, don't do it. So then when it came down to buying a car, I was just like, let's just get it. Like, I just kept trying to like bring down what I really wanted because I wanted to save the money.
Right.
And he was like, but we got the money. Why wouldn't we just buy what we really want? And I was like, I still don't want to spend the money. And so then he just kind of made an executive decision. He's like, listen, either way, we buying a car.
Because you needed a car. It's not like you had a good car and you decided. So that's what the difference is. Right. I didn't just
choose like I had the same SUV for a while and she just kept breaking down on me. Like I kept investing so much money in her, trying to like preserve it. And I mean, literally. And it was just not a reliable car anymore. Right. And he was like, we got to buy a car. And I just like, I just don't want to do it. But to your point, it was just like getting to a mindset of just saying like, no, you need this car. You deserve this car. And it's okay that you're going to buy a brand new car. And I just was like, all right, I'm going to buy it, but I'm not going to tell nobody.
Yes.
And so it's just like that weird space of just not wanting other people to feel like I am boasting, or that, I feel, because because I feel that some people may take it the wrong way. So I feel like for me, like even when I travel and things like that, I'm very limited on what I share, because
I have to push her to share stories,
yeah,
guys.
I just don't
I'm trying to see the
I don't
outfits.
know.
I'm trying to see the beach, and she's trying to hold out on here.
Because it's just, to me, it's just some things, and it doesn't even necessarily tie into like the poverty mindset. I think just for me, some things that I'm okay with the world not knowing what I'm doing.
Right. Yes,
and
so
privacy. So like the privacy aspect of it. And I believe in moving in silence, but it's one thing to move in silence as just because that's truly just how you operate. But then there's another piece of it that you're fearful of what other people may say or think or judge. So I think really sitting that with that for a minute and thinking like, okay, why am I this way? Is it because I care too much about what people think, or it's because it's like, no, like this is how I protect my peace. This is how I know that, I do have those parameters, which I think are extremely important, and I don't feel like I need to share every step of my life online for the world to see.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, I think people that know me personally may know like, if you cool with me, you rock with me, like, you know my life. If you don't, you see my postings of sharing other things I see on social media. Like, I like to keep it sacred. And I think your intentions of why you share is important. So are you sharing because you're trying to inspire, you're trying to, help people have access and exposure so they can see what's possible? Or are you sharing because you do want to boast and you do want to be like, I'm better than you? Mm-hmm. And with many of this, I feel like I had all of this, actually, a few years ago. I probably had all of them. Now that I look at them, like, pretty much. I think a lot of them. And the biggest one was feeling guilty, right? Because you thought you have more than others. Because I come from a country that has so little, because I grew up in poverty. Sometimes kind of like even having what I have felt like, oh my God, like how did I even get this? But you get to the point when you are grateful for what you have and you wish the same for others.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have it and you don't want nobody else to have it. Those are the people you want to watch out for. Because that's a scarcity mindset. But when you have it and you wish, like truly your wish is for other people to also have it, which I think is where you're from too, which is why I think we get along so well.
Yeah.
Because we're like, okay, we have it, we want others to have it. How do we help other people have it? Which is why we work with Femergy, why we do True Print. That's why we do this whole podcast.
Yeah.
It's to help other people be aware, like, ignite their inspiration and help them like not give up. So no, and to be honest, like I think I do get to the point where you don't care what people think. My motto is, do you pay my bills? No. Okay, well, then at that point, you really don't have a lot to say on what my life is like. I have to make sure that I am proud of my life and I am good with my life, right? And that takes years. We're still, I think even now, I'm still having some moments where I have to be like, wait a minute, why do I feel like this? And question that. Why do you feel like this? Where is that coming from, like Christina said? And then you just go ahead and evaluate it, figure it out, and move forward, right? You just can't get there.
Absolutely. You think that was your biggest one on this list?
I don't lie, guys.
I think you need to be real with the people, because
that for me was right. But then if you think about the deals, because I know you're going back to these deals, and I don't know why she's
and
like
the
this.
constant search for cheapest alternative.
Okay.
Like when I go shopping, I love Maylin is just such a cute and genuine
I'm a frugal person.
We go shopping, and I'm like, yo, we should go. She's like, how much is it? Do I really need another pair of sneakers? And I'm like, Maylin, those sneakers you have had for years.
Yes, true. And they worked.
And she's just, I just try to convince her. I'm like, you deserve
You
these
convinced
things.
me. I got one whole pair.
And
I got three pairs of tennis shoes.
When
my whole life.
We got those shoes over a year ago now.
Yeah, and they're so pretty. They were my favorite, like rose gold. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what brand. I forgot already, but
they're Nikes, I think.
Okay, well, you know what it is. So I have never, and because I grew up like this, right? Like I don't know brands. I have a best friend that loves shoes. Every time I see her, she has a pair, like a new pair of like super cool shoes. And I'm like, yeah, like I don't even know what I would wear with that. Like, I'm not, I wear flip-flops and stuff. So I am not there. Like, eventually she's hopefully gonna like help me in my style. It's okay, I'm open. But I grew up like this. Like I never knew what brands I have because my parents couldn't afford it. I used to see kids getting bullied for that. And I never, because I didn't understand it. If they bully me, I can even tell you that I understood what they were doing because of the language barrier and because I really was just excited to have clothes. Like I was just excited to have something new, not just once a year when it was my birthday or when it was Christmas. Like here, you could buy clothes when school started and stuff like that. We used to use uniforms. And, I actually was a big advocate for uniforms in school, guys. I used to be like, let's do it. And the other kids hated me because I wanted to have uniforms, right?
Yes.
So, yes, I like to find, I don't like to say like the cheapest. I like to find the most affordable. And this is
affordable is also known as cheapest.
Well, I work for a big corporation that probably was very frugal, and I learned that word from there. But if you are able to save, also, I think this is a double-edged sword, right? Like, yes, you can look for the cheapest or most affordable things because you're then using the money you save to invest, right, in something else, or you're using that money to do other things that you want to do. So that's part of a budget. That's part of a plan. In the past, I used to go to concerts or shows, and I wanted to buy the cheapest seat all the way in the nosebleeders, whatever you call that. And I'd be like, oh my God, like I can't even see. Like YouTube was better, right? But I want to be there. And now that's not my mind. Like I'm like, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna get dressed. I'm gonna, spend this money in gas. And I'm going to see something that I really love, and I maybe this is the only opportunity I have, then I'm going to get good seats.
Yeah.
So, like, I started slowly, Christina, okay, through the years.
I'm not judging.
I haven't gotten better, you think?
I think you have gotten better.
Let's be honest.
In some ways.
Just not with clothes and shoes. I don't care about that.
Yeah. Because
experiences. I spend money with experiences.
You're getting better about that. Yeah. I have to give you credit.
Because then we go on vacation. Like, we've been to, like, great vacation, and we didn't pick, like, the cheapest suites.
No, not anymore. We did go on a vacation and we ended up in a very sketchy hotel.
Oh my God!
It was,
I need you to let that go.
I just can't. I'm scarred. One trip, Maylin and I went on a road trip to Tennessee, I think it was, and we were going to this conference, and I was like, listen, I'm gonna handle the second hotel. Like, she's like, okay, no problem. I'll take care of the first hotel, and I'm like, all right,
that was your first mistake.
And then so we get there, and the GPS pulls up, and I'm looking outside, and I'm like, this hotel looks a little interesting. And she was like, it's not that bad. The reviews were okay, blah, 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 blah. And we go inside and we look at each other and we're like,
they lied on
those reviews. It was we didn't even get in the bed. Yes. Like we laid on top of the sheets. Like we took some stuff out of our luggage because at that point it was late. There was no way we could find a whole new hotel. There was a big conference. Like everything was booked. So like we didn't even get into the beds. Like we just kind of like laid on top and we put some stuff on the sheets.
We were so terrified.
We were just like, yeah.
I think we didn't sleep. Like
no, I don't think we did. I think we were just kind of like waiting for a checkout time so we could go.
Like somebody to come and murder us.
Oh my God. The whole thing was sketch. We were just like, yeah, no.
So she don't let me like book stuff after that?
Yeah, after that, I was like, yeah, we're not. You gotta send me the link in advance and I have to approve it or I'll just take care of it from there.
I have gotten better, guys. That hasn't happened since then.
That was such a fun trip though. Once we got to the real hotel that we were supposed to be at, it was a wonderful experience.
I hope we're not dropping names.
No. But it's just one of those things that you have to kind of take it ingrained and don't feel like, you have to shift over all these things overnight. It's about awareness. And I think especially if you're a parent or someone who is directly kind of influencing another generation of young people, we have to be thinking about like, what aspects of this possible poverty mentality are we putting on to our kids? And so I think one of the biggest things now as just, a mother of three, I am kind of feeling my own way. And I haven't done it perfectly. Like I said in the beginning, like I had this moment where I'm arguing with my daughter about finishing food that she was clearly no longer, she wasn't hungry, but I was just like, well, you got to eat this because there's no way we're throwing away this food. Right. And finally, like in that moment, I still failed because I didn't let it go. I made her eat it, and
sometimes you can't let go once you start.
Yeah,
right?
I was just like, and we talked about this not that long ago, and she was like, "Do you remember?" Like she remembers this. She reminded me because we were having this conversation about poverty mindset with my family that day, and so I didn't think anything about this situation with her, and she interjects in the conversation.
That's the moment
as my sister is like kind of having this small debate with my mom about it. And Juliana was like, do you remember? And I was like, oh God. And I just sat there and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like I have no other words. But it's moments like that that you can't go backwards. Like I can't go back to that moment when I was arguing with her. But I think I missed an opportunity to maybe just have a conversation. So there are things that you feel are really important, because I do want my kids to understand that you just can't be wasteful. You can't take for granted that you have access to food or that you have access to housing and different things. I think it was a teachable moment that instead of me coming from a place of like, okay, I get you're full, but let's talk about like why you should probably consider this or that. Like
putting less food on your plate.
Exactly. So being able to have that conversation is, I think, important as we're, parenting or just having some type of influence over others, and making sure that we are kind of thinking through our beliefs and our attitudes towards certain things like money, like, opportunities, like resources, like way of living, so that we're not putting our worldview in perspective, which is fine, but we have to make sure it's not coming from this like scarcity mindset that this is all you're ever going to have and this is all you're ever going to...
Monies don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't, but you can get money, right? Like, I think you can start telling your kids early on, right? Like, because why can we not afford this right now? Because we're preparing, we're saving for this, right? Like, I think the way you talk to your kids right now is so imperative. Because then they're gonna grow up like we did with that type of mindset. Like I used to be the same thing with my 7, and I have like 7 nieces and nephews, guys. And I used to get upset when they used to leave on their food on their plate, because I'm like, oh my God, like the kids in Africa and Dominican. And then it took me a while because they would look at me like with this sad eyes, like I just can't eat no more. And I'm like, okay, well, and I think it was one day looking at my niece's face and knowing that she just couldn't. I felt really bad. And I was like, okay, so you want to save it for later? That was the deal. We'll save it for later. Yeah. And maybe she would never eat it, guys. She would never eat it again, though.
Yeah.
But that's okay. And I think slowly they learn that they just had to eat and put enough in your plate. And if you want more, there is enough to eat more. So just eat what you think you can eat and then come back for more, because there's so much more. Like I'm never going to like not let you eat 20 times. It's just, are you just putting more when you have food in your plate still? Like sometimes that happens. They have like a full plate and they want to put more. And I'm like, you would think that's smart.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to kind of what I probably feel is part of the reason that obesity is such an issue here in the United States, because you come from this, idea that you don't really have a healthy relationship with food. You don't have a real healthy relationship, because so many of us really did come from scarcity upbringings of just having food insecurities. So when you do eat, you want to eat as much as you possibly can, even if it means you're going to be sick, because it's like portions are like triple. And it's like, the more I've learned, you can eat pretty much anything, but it's about the portions. It can't be, these large, hefty servings every single time you eat. But a lot of us, I think, go that route because it's like, okay, I better eat now because I don't know if I'm going to eat later, or I don't want to risk not, have eaten enough in this moment, because we think this is like our one shot to have this meal.
Right. Yeah. And I think when I look now, because I'm training myself right now, now that I'm training myself that I will buy a meal and I will break it in half. And then I will have the choice, like, do I want to eat that later? And not because of scarcity, it's because I know that half is enough for me. I don't have to eat everything they gave me. Yeah. So it's a way of saving, but it's also a way of not putting so much in my body, and then giving my body a moment, like, this is enough. Yeah. Like asking yourself, is this enough? Okay, great. Then don't put the rest away, or no, it's not enough. I want more, and keep eating. Like, but you have to stop.
Oh yeah. Because I got groceries, like I even had to, and I'm not there yet. I'm not even training for this, but I need to be, because like you go grocery shopping and you buy all this stuff, and and I see other countries and other times, periods in time where people would buy what they needed for that day or that week, and not having all this, stocked up I'm not talking about like having like essentials kind of on stock, but like
Non-perishables.
yeah, non-perishables. Like there's certain things that we've talked about that in prior episodes, just making sure that you do have certain things that in emergency or whatever it may be. I'm talking about that other kind of shopping where you're
The one
just,
that goes bad in 1 week.
yeah, like you just buying stuff, knowing like who's gonna eat this, and then you throw it away, and then I feel bad when I do that because then I'm like, damn, we just threw away all this stuff, and it's because we bought food and then still went to Chipotle, still went to Chick-fil-A or what have you, and so even just thinking about like habits like that, like when you go into a grocery store, like really getting into a space of like, okay, I'm going to the grocery store and what is my goal, like what do I really need, and am I buying in a way that is actually helpful, or is this part of that scarcity mindset?
And making a list, because I go and I like to go through every aisle. It's just a thing I do. But I think I went shopping with one of my friends, and I told her I have a list. She's like, well, let's stick to the list. And that was the hardest thing to do because I literally wanted to add more things to my cart, but they were not on my list. And I'm like, but do you need them?
Right.
No, but I mean, they're here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think having a list and trying to stick to it for a couple of times just to see how you feel. And then look at your refrigerator and your like pantry before you go into the store. Because many times I have bad things that I didn't think I had, and I have like 3 or 4 of the same thing.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't look.
Yeah.
Now I have 3 ketchups. Like, you don't need 3.
Exactly. Like, why do I have this? And I need to start doing that with clothes too. Like I know Maylin tells me this all the time. She's like, you need to clean out your closet. And then I do clean it out, and then I still keep it in the bag and I don't donate it like the way
I take her old clothes.
Man,
I'm happy
it's
with
just
that.
crazy because you think about like, well, what if I want to wear it? Like, what if
Did you wear it in 3 years?
Yeah,
though?
but this part, I do think is part of this like this poverty mindset. Is
They don't
like,
even fit you no more.
Yeah, but it's like in my mind, but like, what if I need them? And it's like, no,
They're 3 sizes over your size right now. So you
I
don't
know.
need them. You're never going to need them.
God willing. I'm hopeful. I'll take that. But it's just this thing, like, I can't part with things like that because I'm like, I didn't have clothes growing up. And so it was like, now I'm definitely much more like, I like clothes. I'm not really big on labels. Like, I like sneakers, but it's just more of like, because I didn't have that growing up, now that I'm able to buy it when I can, I'm like, I just want to keep it. And I'm noticing that one of my kids is like that too, because I went into her room and I was looking at her shoe,
Collection.
shelf or whatever. And I was like, these don't fit you no more. And she's like, I know. And I'm like, so are we donating these? Like, and we've done rounds of donations.
Thank you.
Yeah. But there's certain ones that she just doesn't want to part with. And I'm like, but you could like be blessing somebody else with this. Like, they're newer looking, like some, like maybe they can't afford a pair like this. And she's just
can't.
She's just mentally like, and I'm not forcing her, but I'm also trying to kind of plant that seed. Like, you can let these go. Like, eventually I'll be able to, God willing, buy you something else or similar. And so we're working on it. And it just kind of made me think about so many of the things that I know I have influenced in their day-to-day processing of clothes, relationships, people that I'm like, oh. But now I'm aware.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that I can, kind of going back to how do we switch to an abundance mindset. And when I read that, so an abundance mentality is one that assures that you are successful and that you replicate that success. You have value and talents and strong demand, and you can handle most situations that come your way very successfully. And those times that you can't, you're resilient and you bounce back quickly.
Yeah, period.
Yeah. And so I think that takes work. Like, it takes work to come from a place of having a poverty mindset or having this scarcity mindset to coming to a place of abundance, not just in a physical form, but in a, like the mentality aspect of it.
Yeah. And I think when you're making changes, because you say you're aware, and as you're shifting your mindset and you're taking different actions and steps, they're watching that too, right? So you're now imprinting those new habits and those new things on them. And I think when you start letting go of your stuff, right? There's a book, I don't know, something about joy and letting go. This nice Asian lady did this, really nice. And it talks about like how, you bless the things that you have and you give it. Because I couldn't let go of things because of my scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
I had like 4 closets of old clothes and I just couldn't. It was hard. And I had to go through that process of like looking at everything and being like, why am I keeping this? What was the joy that it brought me? Okay, he brought me joy, thanking it for the joy that it brought me, and then letting it go. And then thinking that that's the part that helped me, is that it's going to help and bless somebody else, right? So when you think of it, like, it helped me and it blessed me, I no longer need it. Keeping it here, I'm not going to wear it anymore. I don't care who gave it to me. Thank you. Now I'm going to bless somebody else. And I think that's how you handle every single thing that you have to let go, and then it will help you. And then teaching them how to do that.
Yeah.
And in blessing, because you're the stuff that you donate blesses a lot of people, not just here, but in Dominican. So yes, continue to donate your stuff, everybody. That's very important. One of my rules now is like, if you get something new, you have to give out something old, right? So if I buy a new dress, then I have to go to my closet and find what dress I have not worn in 3 years that needs to be given away. Because I'm not going to, if you buy a new thing every time and you have old things, you're going to have multiple thousands of things. So that's when I say that to my nieces and nephews. I haven't bought them a toy in a while. And the rule was, you pick 3 toys you want to donate, and I'll get you 3 toys. And they're still trying to figure out what 3 toys. It's been 2 years, guys. They're still trying to figure out what 3 toys they want to donate. Right? I'm going to leave that on my brother, though. I can only handle so much.
Right, you're like my capacity.
Right, but that's my rule. You want a new toy, you donate a new toy. If not, then you don't need a new toy, because you're not even ready to go to the old toy.
I'm going to start pressing my son that way, because the other day I went in his room and it was like the wild, wild west. And I'm like, son, what are we doing with all these toys? Because he's on that tablet all day.
And he wants new things all the time.
And he just sees things. He's like, I want it. And then I'm like, you got a room full of stuff that you don't even play with. So I told him I was going to donate and gift away all of his toys. And he was like, to who? And I was like, it doesn't matter to who, like, you don't play with. But these are my things. You can't give away my things. And I'm like, but you don't play with them.
But you involve him in the process,
yeah.
right? So I think some of our parents would just make decisions without our consent,
that's
right?
True. That's
and then we'll
true.
feel violated. We feel like, oh my God, you just gave out my whole outfit.
Yeah.
Like, I like the outfit still, right?
Right.
So I think
that's a good point.
Where we do things different is involving them in it. Like, so they feel like they're part of it. They'll learn it.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing, but what isn't it be great to learn it now?
Yeah.
And now when they're like our age.
Right. Because I'm still like, what you want? Hold on. What are you doing? Like, I go to my mom's house and I try to take stuff and she's like, well, I was going to use that. I'm like, you didn't even. I literally have taken so many things from her basement, and like every blue moon she'll come over and she'll see it and she's like, is that mine? And I'm like, Mom, I've had this for 5 years. Don't even dare ask me for it back. Like, you don't even use it at this point. So, but yeah, you're right.
And that's my mom now. She knows what I have in my house more than me. So she'll be like, don't worry, when I come to visit, I'll figure it out. And she literally takes stuff, and I wouldn't even know she took it.
Yeah.
I won't know she took it because of how much stuff, we're going through. So I just say that. So involve the kiddos in this type of changes. So how you start changing the abundance into an abundance mindset? We talked about a lot about what the poverty mindset, changing to an abundance mindset starts with being thankful for what you have now. I remember a couple of years ago, Christina and I I don't know if we were doing yoga, we were working, I don't know what we were doing, and we had a conversation about abundance. You remember?
I don't think we were doing yoga because I hate yoga. I mean, I don't hate it. Let me rephrase. It's just not my thing. So
we were having a conversation like on the floor of my house. It was like we were like in the little carpet, and I was like, Christina said, we were
working out. Yeah. Okay. Yes. I do remember now.
And we listened to an abundance.
Yes.
Like
you were
type
doing
of
some kind of book thing around that time.
I was.
Yeah, you had to do like a certain amount of affirmations, something. I remember that you were doing that.
Because, and I was like, Christina, I think you need this. And she's like, okay.
I'm like, can you just do it for both of us? And like every overflow will land on me.
No, that is not how this works either. You have to do it yourself.
I always want the cliff notes. I'm like,
no.
Can you just give
you
me
gotta do the work.
Wait, what is it called? Is it the cliff notes?
The cliff notes.
Yeah, I just want the cliff notes.
You just want the summary.
I'm like, I don't have time.
But I remember how that day you had a different perspective. That day that you did the abundance, like you listened to the abundance thing. It was from Chopra, Deepak Chopra, and we were listening to like some abundance thing that he had with Oprah, and I had like the recordings, and I had to do like 21 days of this thing, of this challenge. And she happened to be in my house that day that I had the challenge. So I was like, you're going to listen to it with me?
Yeah.
And then I made her like think about, after she listened to it, to like, I think either write something or say something that she felt about abundance. Because I think at that point, you didn't think you had enough.
Yeah.
right? Like that point you were having this like, I don't have enough and I should be here and I should be there. And I think going through that exercise, you're like, oh, I do have this and I do have that. And I am more abundant than I thought I was. And I remember seeing this shift, I think from there to like where you have all of this now that you can be like, I'm abundant.
It's so true. It really, the abundance piece of it, because I think that some of us, and I was some of us, we really equate, success or happiness or fulfillment, and sometimes in the wrong ways. And so I have really, and now that you mention it, you're right. That was around the time period I started to shift kind of my mindset and perspective of like, you know what, I actually have everything that I really need right now. And so just having gratitude with that. Like I wake up sometimes and I walk around my house, and even though it's not in the necessary zip code that I would want to be in, it's, I love my house. Like if I could pick it up, and move it just because there's some wild things happening like in my area, I love the home that, my husband and I have created, and God willing, we've been able to like just blossom as a family, even though we have so much stuff.
Life
Happens. But it's more of just this appreciation is really what it is. This appreciation for every day I get to wake up and create or figure out ways that I can impact other people's lives, and just things that before I used to pray about or wish I could do. And I don't ever want to get to a place where I become so like complacent that I forget, like, no, this is something that you should really feel like fulfilled by, and, feel that abundance that you were kind of describing.
Yeah. And I think it starts with your daily habits. So sometimes you don't have a lot of time. So for me, I think the first thing I do when I wake up is I'm really excited that I woke up, because not a lot of people get to wake up. So that to me is the first win. Like, thank you, God, you gave me one more day. I look around, I have a shelter, I have a house, I have food, I have ways to pay my bills. And I think once you have that, like the necessities, I think you have to look around where you are right now and just be grateful for the necessities that are being met. Like your basic needs are being met. And if they're not, this is a great place to start looking, right, of how we can get those basic needs met. Once you have that and you acknowledge that, I really think the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, really opens it up for more. Because if you're not grateful for what you have now, you're not going to be grateful for the more that's to come. Nothing that you get will be enough. Yeah. And I think that's what the poverty mindset does. Is that no matter what you get is never enough because you're afraid to lose it. But when you have abundance, it's not that you're not afraid to lose. It's that you're okay if you do, because you know it will be provided to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking, like it's okay to dream and dream big and dream in ways that you're like, okay, yeah, nobody I know who's ever done this, but I could be the first.
Right.
Or, and so it's so true. I literally was just in Jamaica last week, and, my husband and he started to laugh because we sat first class going there.
Yes,
which I was surprised by, because
He had the miles.
I didn't pay for that, but that was like a surprise kind of thing. When we got to the airport, he had used some points and upgraded us. And I just remember laughing in the first class because they come around, they ask you what you want, and I'm like, what? I have only flown first class one other time. And I just remember laughing, and I just was like, who are you? Because he was the main one.
Who's a deal seeker.
Where he was just like, no, we can't do that. And I was just like, wow, how the tables have, because now he's like, we can figure it out. And I have seen this shift in his mind where he's no longer challenging me about things. Not all things, but certain things where before traveling or purchases, it would literally cause an argument sometimes in our household because he was so like, how's that going to happen? We don't have no money. And I said, we don't have money today, but that don't mean like in 5-6 months it couldn't change. And like if this is what we really want, we have to be willing to figure it out and do things daily to make it happen. And so I just laugh because we have come so long, and I mean, we're not perfect and we're not there, but I have seen a mindset shift in the both of us, as it relates to just experiences and things that that we've been able to do as a family.
And I think he has been able to see the abundance, right, that he couldn't see before either.
Yeah.
Right? And I think once you got on that, I think he could get on that.
Yeah. Because he said, I never thought about traveling until you started traveling. And because I was going to travel with or without him.
You know?
Because he would argue so much, like, we can't afford it. I was like, you know what?
You staying.
You only get one time to complain to me about something. And I'm like, you know what? You're right.
You're not
We not
invited.
going. And you know me. I don't play. I'm like, oh, you know what? You're so right.
Maylin.
I was like, you know, because you have to get to a place where you can't stop your growth. Like, and so that's something, and in a future episode, we're going to talk about a relationship kind of check-in, audit, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's really, really key as we're getting ready to wrap up this episode into thinking about, as you are becoming more aware as to, maybe I do have a poverty mindset, but I want to have an abundance mindset. You know, what little things can I start doing daily to get me there? You also have to be very mindful of who you have in your circle. If you are surrounded by a bunch of people who also are in this poverty mindset and not aware that they are in a poverty mindset, you will constantly be at this tug of war with what you want and where you want to be and who you are, because you are not around people who are uplifting and inspiring you. And so when he and I used to get into these arguments about traveling or buying stuff, once I got to a place of like, no, this is what I'm going to have, I stopped arguing with him about it. I'm like, you know what? It's not my job to convince you. You know, I can try to inspire you. I can try to, show you different. But if you're not willing to drink from that cup, then I have to be at a place where I'm ready to make this move by myself, or I'm really, going to find people who are willing to look at themselves in a way of saying, maybe I'm in my own way. It's not that, life sometimes gives us all really bad cards, but the reality is, it's like we can make the choice to play the game the way we want to play it. And some people get stuck in this victim mindset of, my dad was poor, my mom was poor, this is the life this is just what it is. No, I don't. I know it's harder. I know there are more obstacles you have to go through to be able to get out of those pits. But I don't believe anybody was just designed to kind of be in those spaces. So don't spend so much time trying. Like, you got to work on you first. And then, when you have to work on you first. You can't save everybody as you're trying to fix, or trying to. Yeah, you can't. Because when he started, and he said it to me, he said, when I saw you, like, you were really the one who inspired me to want to start to travel, because until I started to do it, he never really thought it was possible. And then when I started to travel without him, he was like, yo, she's not going on no more trips. Cool. I'm not cool with this. Like, because I just was like, I'm not about to sit here and argue with you. Like, you don't want to go? No problem. I'll find somebody who does want to go. And it's not that I didn't want him to go, but I'm not going to sit here and become stagnant in my growth and in my life. And so eventually, organically, he got on board and he figured it out. And
he's very happy, guys.
Very happy about it. He got it. We got smart about our finances a little bit. We're not there, but we got credit cards that had points for flight, we got airline credit cards, and we were able to start accruing points for flights. So these are the strategies we use to start making travel more of a priority, and not seeing it so much as like, oh, that's not something we could ever do.
Because you can do it. And I think you have to also have, if you have already a partner, then you have to have some type of grace and patience with them, because they may not, you both were the same mindset, right?
Yeah.
That's how you got together. Your vibration was right there. But then when you start growing and shifting your mindset to abundance, and your partner is not there, you can open the invitation. You can continue to grow like Christina did. But if your partner is not there yet, just give him some grace and time.
Her.
Right? Or her. The goal is that they will get there, right? That they will get to your thing. They will start seeing you, will inspire them to get to what they need to get. They will make the changes if they want to make the changes. And if they don't, then that's other conversation, other episodes we'll talk about.
Right.
But for now, I'm glad that you inspire him, and I'm glad that he got there, and that he's now planning the trips.
Right.
No longer you.
It worked out so well because he's so much better than me at stuff like that. Like, he's so detailed. He's very meticulous. And so, like, now he plans everything
in advance.
And when I travel without him, I'm so lost literally, I'm like, dang, I didn't check in. I don't have my papers printed. And so, like,
what do we do now? I'm like, girl, sit down.
I know, right? So what a great thing now that he's on board. Yes. So,
I'm very happy too.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. As we mentioned at the beginning, moving from a poverty mindset to an abundance mindset, like, it's a journey, it's a process. Give yourself grace. And really just take the time to kind of sit with where you think you might be in that journey, and, just do what you can every single day, just to make better choices and better habits. And as we always say, it's not about perfection, it's about progress. And I think this was something I just felt was really important for us to talk through. Especially now, because there's so much scarcity of things you're seeing on the news and you're seeing in the stock market, and it can quickly push us to shift in a negative way of how we live, how we breathe, what are we saying to our kids. And so I think it's just a good opportunity to start really checking in and saying, am I feeling, saying, thinking this through a poverty mindset, or is this abundance mindset, and where do I want to be in that?
That's good. And I think if you don't know where to start, like we mentioned some ideas, but also if you can Google it and YouTube it, it's there. Yeah. I have a YouTube playlist for affirmations, and one of those is abundance, and one of those is like I am statements, and everything is working out for me. Google some affirmations, Google some abundance, meditations, and make sure that you try those out. In the next couple of weeks, we can share some online when we go on either live or some of our posts in our social media on IG. So follow us for that. But in the meantime, Google it. It's available for you. Super easy, for free. Yeah.
Well, as we always say, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited, and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.